Greetings, adventurers, and welcome to the Micflayers podcast, coming to you today from under a flagstone that just made a suspicious clicking noise. I am your host, Martin O'Dwyer, and joining me, as always, is the man, the myth, the legend, your host, Conor O'Brien. How are we doing today, Conor?
Oh gosh! Oh, thank you so much. I'm doing great, Martin. Thank you. Thanks for having me on the show.
Just to be clear,
what was that intro? The man, the myth, the legend. Please.
I know, it just felt appropriate. I was on a roll and it just slatted right in there. But just bear in mind, like, Rumpelstiltskin is a man, a myth, and a legend too. So you know, there's a scale.
The only thing that would make me a myth is the fact that I'm rarely seen by people because I never leave my home.
That would make like most of the entire country of Ireland a myth, which
at the moment,
a lot of people around the world, yeah.
We're having, if you can't notice by the for our YouTube watchers,
or the fact you can't
glare.
really see me,
that Martin is just a silhouette at the moment. It's really sunny in Ireland the last couple of days, and yesterday I went to the Clare Glens river waterfall kind of trail there, and I think I saw more people at one time than I've ever seen in the past year.
Yeah.
And I mean, walking down the main street of our city, I have seen less people. It was lovely. I've actually never been before. It's my first time.
Oh, really?
And it's beautiful. It looks like I'm in Ammanhen.
Yeah, it's very Middle Earth. It's class.
Yeah. It looks like it's just cliffs and rivers. And I hopped across some rocks and nearly fell in, but didn't.
If we ever decide
successful dex checks.
If we ever decide to just mortify ourselves in public and start doing sketch stuff, we could always go out there with a bunch of cloaks and like wooden swords.
Yeah. Oh my god. Yeah, absolutely. We'll do it like during the winter when absolutely no one is going there except dedicated dog walkers.
Oh god, I didn't think you were going to say dog walkers. No, we got to we
What did you think I was going to say, Mark?
I thought we're going to be moving swiftly on.
Okay.
No, we just get there and you're like, "Did you bring the swords?" I was like, and then I just pull like ice and Andreel out of the boot. I was like, "You meant the real ones,
exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I've what's that sword called again?
Caesura.
Caesura, that's right, yeah. Oh, beautiful replica sword from The Name of the Wind.
And now you know exactly how big nerds we are, because yes, we do collect swords from books.
I'm just waiting to get if you want to double down on the whole nerd thing, the very next room over from me is officially dubbed the nerd room in my house. We have a spare room, and I basically, it's at the moment it's just like it's a bit of a storage stuff and all that, but we have a table in there, and so we play D&D from when we're not in lockdown. And the idea is to just build shelves and put books on it and swords on the wall, and all manner of miniatures and all that other stuff. And both me and my fiance call it the nerd room. It is officially the nerd room. It's not just me trying to make things happen here. She's officially called it the nerd room as well.
I'm like slowly closing in on not renting anymore and having my own place. And as soon as I do, the background for this is going to change pretty fucking dramatically. 3 minutes, we're okay.
I'm hoping to do the same. I have a somewhat surviving plant behind me, and then some if you can see the holes in the wall just there. There we go. They're just holes from where there was a previous TV cable run up the wall that I have filled but not sanded or painted. And also there's a manky looking door and a manky yellow wall behind me. And yeah, I'm off like in May. I'm off for a week in May. I have plans to take everything out of this room, redo the floor, put up some soundproof board, paint the whole thing. It will hopefully look substantially better. Yeah,
and hopefully maybe this time maybe like in the new year 2022, we'll both have like class, proper, actual good like backgrounds for our podcast, not like
exactly,
not like this like crappy like what bedroom that I'm renting in this fucking house. Anyway, Conor, question.
Hit me.
Attack mode or defense mode?
Oh, well, that depends. I mean, if you're going with your Blue Eyes White Dragon, naturally you put it into attack mode.
You just activated my trap card.
Oh. Why didn't I see that coming? I genuinely didn't know that's where you were going with it. I had a whole thing then where I was going to be like, but if you're using a stone soldier, I believe he has much higher defense than it.
No, Conor, because today...
I like Yu-Gi-Oh!
I used to love that show when I was a kid.
Great show.
Did you ever see that clip of like how much money Kaiba earns in a day? or in an hour. Or there's like a clip on YouTube of how much money Kaiba earns in an hour, and it's like €1,000,000 an hour or something. Something. He literally like goes up into a satellite or something through a space elevator and has like a card, puts the card down, and it's like it's like $3 million an hour.
God, there's a brilliant show anyone who can should watch on YouTube, and it's called Yu-Gi-Oh! The Abridged series.
Oh man, they did Team
basically
4-Star.
Sorry,
Is it by Team 4-Star?
I don't know who actually makes it, but they've been making it for years at this point.
They do Dragon Ball as well, and they do like a bunch of shit like that.
It's so funny. They just take the piss out of all the characters. My favorite one is like in one of the season 1 episodes. Tristan is probably the most useless character.
Oh God, I've seen that. Yeah, the Tristan is hilarious.
His voice sounds like this.
I'm the main character.
That's the one. Yeah, there's an opening thing where it's like last time on Yu-Gi-Oh, but instead Tristan goes last time on Yu-Gi-Oh, and he's like, Tristan, what are you doing here? I'm the main character. It's like you're not the main character.
No, Tristan, you're not even a supporting character.
There was a whole season where he was turned into a robot monkey, and it did not matter at all.
Oh my God, you just dragged that out of like the depths of my memory. I literally, you said that, and I saw the monkey with his stupid haircut.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
He was the least impactful character. Nothing he did mattered in the slightest.
When Taya has more of an impact on the story than you do, you're basically scenery.
Yeah.
Anyway, seeing as we've diverged on from Yu-Gi-Oh,
yeah.
today we're going to talk about something that's like a pretty important, like one of the key features of the like exploration pillar, I would say, of D&D. It's like exploration roleplay combat.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Yeah, which is traps, and like traps, I found like traps can be tricky, which is kind of in their nature, really.
Hey,
Hey,
it can be
tricksy habits. Yeah, it can be not just in implementing, but like deciding how many, like what you want to do, where, like what their purpose is and stuff like that. But it's a tricky thing for something that's like super prevalent in like pop culture and media. And like if I were Connor, if I were to tell you, think of a famous trap from like a movie or a story.
Okay, I'm gonna go somewhere, and I think you're probably thinking this immediately. The rolling boulder in Indiana Jones.
That was I had two that I thought you'd pick, and it was that one, or it was the penitent man. The penitent man. Do you know when he's going through the Last Crusade and he's walking through the thing? It's like the penitent man can pass, and all the blades come swinging out, and you have to crawl on your knees. Yeah, stuff like that. I actually wrote down like a bunch.
Indiana Jones is actually great for that. They also have the blow. I don't know if they're the first ones to do it, but the blow dart one coming out of the wall, that's also Indiana Jones.
So much of like classic D&D traps are just wholesale taken from stuff like Indiana Jones, and Indiana Jones in itself is an homage to like 1920s, 1930s, like specifically like boys' adventure books of like these similar kinds of like Indiana Jones figures, inherited features, but figures who are like.
This is a weird diversion. There was a weird thing in like the 90s or early 2000s where Lego had an entire Lego adventure kind of subset of their product.
Yes.
And it came with like biplanes and basically a character who was not Indiana Jones but was basically Indiana Jones, and pits of snakes and boulders, and it had everything Indiana Jones. I don't know how to get away with it now I think about it.
Oh, it was easy because that guy likes snakes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this guy actually loves snakes. He has a pet snake, so that makes him entirely different from Indiana Jones. So,
Plane entirely made out of snakes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh God.
Look, I'm the one who's afraid of snakes. No, oh God.
That movie.
Yeah. Snakes on a plane. I love it. And like, also,
is that what you were going with? I thought you were going straight for snakes on a plane.
No. A literal plane made out of snakes.
I was telling Tara the plot to that movie
Would
recently.
That just be a coatl? A snake-sized plane, like a coatl?
More or less, yeah. I was telling Tara the plot of Snakes on a Plane recently because she knew of the movie. We had no idea what it was about.
It's so hard to watch.
I was like, oh, so there's a guy and he's basically in the witness protection program and I have to transport him from X to Z. I was from X to Y from these two positions. And when he gets on the plane, instead of, sending like a hitman or a sniper or literally anybody else with a weapon, and they load the plane up with snakes who are doused with a pheromone that makes them super violent.
Yeah.
And then at a certain point on the flight, once they reach a certain altitude, the snakes get released from their containment. And then everyone has to try and survive on these snakes who are on a plane. The premise is just fucking stupid. Like the movie I hated, the premise is dumb. I don't know how the pitch of that movie got anywhere past the first meeting, you know?
Oh, it's dumb as hell, but I love it. And like
Yeah.
I said, as someone who's terrified of snakes, so that film was hard to watch for me initially, but it's just so funny. Like,
Wow.
and it's not. I don't think it's not intended to be like a comedy. It's meant to be like a kind of a B movie,
Yeah.
like kind of like
Action.
yeah, like if if Air Force One had a shitload of snakes in it, it's kind of that kind of an intention.
Yeah,
And, like,
exactly. Yeah.
But I just could
Action-y
not stop
thriller kind of
laughing
thing.
the entire time. Like, and there's also like the immortal line, like, I'm fucking sick of these motherfucking snakes on my motherfucking plane. And it's like,
Yeah.
yes, oh, so good. But yeah, that's actually a incredibly elaborate and not necessarily the most reliable trap. But yeah, that definitely would feature as a trap.
It's a trap. They did not
Yeah.
know the snakes were there, and then as soon as they got into a high enough position, it'd be the most elaborate trap to spring, and that's why it's so dumb. But yes, they were trapped on the plane, and the snakes were released, and yeah,
Yeah, and like if you
it's
think
a very
about it,
weird one.
like a lot of like horror cinema for probably about a good decade there was also completely overtaken by traps by the Saw franchise. That's all that was. That was a dude who just made
The Saw franchise
series
is
after
pretty
series
cool,
of
yeah.
like ridiculous, like, oh yeah, if you want to just absolutely kill everyone in your party, make traps like the Saw guy.
Oh, there's always one in the Saw movies that just fucking like. There's a lot of stuff that's kind
Yeah.
of body horror, cringe stuff in that. There's one that gets me every time, and I think it's in the second or third one where there's a bunch of people in a house.
Yeah, second
and
one.
It's the second one, and there's a girl who has to put her. There's a key in
Yeah,
the box. And she has
yeah,
to put her
yeah.
hands up.
Oh
It's-
Christ!
okay, one, it's gross. And two, it's so fucking dumb because basically it's designed in such a way that you can push your hands through these little folded metal flaps.
Yeah.
But then when you try to pull back, it cuts into your arm.
Yeah.
And in order to try and free her hand, she puts her other hand in the second hole instead of just like reaching up like that and trying to like loosen them, which you could potentially do.
Yeah.
It's so, but it just makes you cringe every time I think about it. Like,
Not the one I thought you were gonna say, but I think it's in that film as well. It's when one has to go digging around in the pit of syringes for the key.
yes, and like one of the there's like a bunch of people, and they're all like shitty people.
Yeah.
But I think the big guy throws that girl in, doesn't he? He goes, "You go look," and he grabs her. And
I think
tosses
he
her into the pit.
does. Yeah. Jesus. That's the guy who like cuts the skin off the back of his neck to see the number.
He realizes
Yeah.
that then all the numbered combinations on how to leave the house are all tattooed on the back of every person's neck.
Yeah.
So he goes around fucking, not quite scalping, but scalping people to
Yeah.
get these off them. Yeah.
Look, there's a lot of like logical leaps in those movies that really kind of, when you think about them for too long, the movie just becomes completely like unbelievable. But like, as someone who has quite a few tattoos, there is no way in hell you could knock me out, tattoo me, and then me wake up and not go, what the fuck?
Why does the back of my neck feel horribly sunburned?
Yeah, like there's no way you don't notice that. Particularly,
Yeah,
I'm gonna guess the man from Saw probably doesn't put the nice cool gel on it. Probably doesn't put the nice
Yeah.
cling. I'd imagine he just hammers that shit in there. So like, yeah, you're probably gonna notice. But like, what I suppose the point of me talking about all this stuff is like, it's very much something that like as like a culture, like as a general like pop culture audience, traps are super prevalent. Even if you don't really think they are, they just kind of sneak on in there. So I think it's probably a good idea to have a chat about that, because I know the first time I tried to use traps, I think I was trying to make them up myself. I wasn't quite sure what saves or like things to put onto them, and like as well then there's the whole thing of like, you don't want like, you want your traps to hurt someone, but you don't want them to like debilitate them for a fight necessarily either. You want to, I always like aim for like give someone a moment's pause maybe, or like force them to use like a low level healing spell or something like that.
Yeah, I think there's a few different reasons you can implement them. I think typically when you think of traps, you think of them as being like you think, why are the traps here? And they can fall under a couple different categories of, are they here for like a lore reason? Like, for example, is this a tomb that people specifically don't want tomb robbers coming into, therefore these traps are designed to stop you? Or is it something that the DM is kind of implementing from a gameplay perspective, where you're just simply trying to drain the resources of the party? You don't, the character has 50 health. Okay, you're not going to do 6d12 damage because that would potentially kill them, but you might do like 2d6 or something like that, 3d6 of a fire trap that burns them a bit, and then they're like, okay, I've lost 9 hit points. That's it's not insignificant, but it might be enough where they might go, we need to rest up before going into the next chamber, or something, and then you get them spending a hit dice, and it's about just kind of draining the resources a little bit. Or maybe someone that goes, we don't have time, I'll use a cure wounds on you, and then they're down one spell slot as a result. It's about kind of draining the resources. If you look at like the adventuring rules, like the daily XP that people, or the daily amount of challenges people should be going through, the idea behind that is that you're not simply doing one fight or one interaction a day. It's typically like, right, we need to go through the forest and fight something small there, and then we need to go into the tomb, and there's a couple of traps, and then we finally get to the boss, and by the time we've burned a couple smites, we've burned a couple spell slots, one of us has used a potion, blah blah blah, and then now we're at the boss, and the boss is now adequately, scaled to us because we've burnt resources on the way in here. Because if we fought the boss at the start of the day when we had everything fully equipped and full health, maybe then it wouldn't have been a challenge like it would have been with traps and other stuff included.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's a really good way to maybe like, you might, maybe the encounter you've set up for later isn't deadly, it's only hard, and you want to kind of make it like a little more difficult. You can do that absolutely by kind of like forcing people to use once a day or once a rest abilities and spells and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like a fighter might just use instead of saying like, oh, okay, I don't want a short rest because everyone else is, I'll just burn my second wind, and get back a few health points off that, and we'll be grand. I'll keep going, no hassle. And like, but it's just about like whittling, you're not whittling them down so you can break them necessarily, but you're whittling the team down, or the party down, so that when you do arrive in that final chamber and they're facing the dragon, they're not doing it at full strength. And I even think just mentally that plays a role in it, because even just knowing, I have to burn in one of my I don't know, third level spells on the way in here, and now we have to fight a dragon. Just knowing that it might even not even come up, it might not even be relevant, but just knowing that you've burned a third level spell might make you more wary, and that sets the tone of this is a dangerous dragon.
Oh yeah, I had that exact thing 2 weeks ago when I was running. It was when they're going into fight an Oni, and my druid Mandra, he had used like 2 or 3 like 4th or 5th level spells, either doing like scrying or other kind of things that they were doing while they were kind of investigating everything that he was just trying out because he wasn't expecting the combat. And then when it came down to the combat, he was literally like, oh, I have only 3rd level and lower. It's up to you guys. You're gonna handle this. And it was just like literally just like patted my blood hunter and my rogue on the shoulder and were like, gents, it's up to you. And then took 2 steps backwards into the back line. Which is hilarious because like half the time he turned into a giant flaming shark this week, which really surprised the residents of the dock they were pulling into.
I'm trying to imagine how it mechanically works, but okay.
I flavor all of his wild shapes as like fire rushes over his body and like reshapes his body into whatever animal he's turning into.
That's really cool. That's some Naruto stuff right there.
It's exactly what it is. Yeah, exactly. All of his polymorphs and wild shapes have like similar look and style to all of the Jinchuriki, the Jacker beasts. The way they look, they're all sort of like that.
That's really, really cool.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's important to frame an adventuring day as such, and not just you wake up, you go and you arrive directly at the spot you need to be at, and you do the thing, you go home and rest again. You should be having, and again, not always, not every single day, but if your players are going on a particular quest where they have to go to the cave and then go through the cave, and then there's some traps and a puzzle, and then also it's all designed to count towards that adventuring day.
Would you say that you would use traps more often? Say if you were like to bring us through a dungeon, would it be in a dungeon you'd get more use out of them, or do you also just kind of like throw them in here and there?
I put them places that I think it makes sense to them to be. But that's just me in terms of almost everything I do in D&D. I can't justify you guys walking down a regular country road and I'm like, a hydra attacks. I'm like, why the fuck would there be a hydra in the middle like that? I need to justify it to myself,
Yeah, absolutely.
So like, yeah, I put them places that make sense. So for example, yeah, if you're going to a cave that some kobolds or something are in, or it's a tomb that maybe someone like a lord or a king is buried there, so it would make sense that the people who buried them would put traps in to prevent grave robbers. Or if you're trying to sneak up on a camp of bandits, they might leave pit traps and bear traps around because they don't want anyone getting the drop on them while they're in their camp. So stuff like I'll put them places that they make sense to be. I rarely, or like, you know, you break into a lord's manor and you try to you pull back one of the paintings. Behind the painting there's a safe, and you go to try and crack the safe, but you don't know that there's a glyph of warding placed there because he doesn't want people going into his safe. And then as soon as you touch it, it's just bang, ice damage or whatever.
Yeah. I feel like
stuff like that.
Traps and glyph of warding are like joined together at the hip.
Yeah. Oh, glyph of warding's a brilliant. I absolutely love it as a spell. It's really, really cool. I used it once on you.
Yeah.
When you went to this basically hidden valley, and there was some giants who were in a fortress nearby, and you have to kill one of them because he'd been using a sword of dragon slaying as the tip of his spear. And you have to get into the fortress, and towards the end you have to fight I made up a stat block for a frost giant shaman who just had a ton of ice spells.
Yeah.
But at the door directly across from him was like a vault as well. So again, I'll do stuff like that where it's like, oh, there's valuables here. People are going to want to protect their valuables. There's either traps or a different warding or something like that protecting it. I think you guys got hit by an ice glyph of warding that time. And actually, I think you did it afterwards. I think you went into fight the guy first, and then because it went up to like a T-junction.
Yeah.
And on the right was the Frost Goliath Shaman, and on the left was the vault with all the magic items. And I had thought you guys, being you guys, would immediately go in and try to loot all the magic items. But instead you were like, no, let's get rid of this guy first while we have the chance and all this. And you went for him, and it kind of didn't work out the way I wanted, because then I'm like, oh, you get hit by a trap, but the fight's already over, so I guess you and all the giants are gone, so I guess you can just heal or whatever now. It doesn't matter. But yeah.
No,
cool spell. I didn't implement this super well there. I probably should have put it in such a way that you guys would have had to hit the trap before hitting the thing. Giving you the option kind of made it redundant after the fact.
Yeah, I don't know. Look, you can't, again, like, it's D&D. You can't really plan. Like, you can plan, but you can't really plan.
Yeah.
So,
You can plan, but it might not matter.
yeah. You might not, your party might just decide to kidnap a random person who turns out to be the half of the fight that you had planned for the rest of that session.
Yeah, you told a story how that Oni, well, they thought it was a dragonborn, and then they kidnapped him, and it turned out to be the Oni that you had planned them fighting a couple sessions later as part of a bigger encounter.
No, that session. That session they were going to fight that Oni, another Oni, and 3 Dibuks.
What's a Dibuk?
A Dibuk, like in D&D, it's like an undead that can do, like, you could use it's like
it's
a fiend. It's a fiend that possesses a corpse and makes it do all these weird shit, and like you can do a bonus action to make it do something horrifying, like vomit blood or spin its head around 180, and it can cause someone fear.
I think I know it. I think I know what you're talking
about.
But
it was supposed to be 2 Onis and 3 of them for a hard fight, and it was like, because I assumed they'd like, okay, we'll wait till night and we'll sneak around and all this, but no, they just grabbed him and then fucked off with it. But Glyph of Warding in particular is one I'm looking forward to using. I haven't used it yet on one of my guys because I haven't.
It's hefty, like it does quite a bit of damage.
Yeah, because you can stick and like you could stick like fucking Sleet Storm, Cone of Coals, like you could just like lightning bolts. Like some really, it is. That's why, isn't it? It's Glyph of Warding, or am I think? Oh, hang on. Am I thinking of the other glyph spell that you can like store a spell inside it?
I think you're thinking of that one. I think Glyph of Warding is like a 3rd level, I want to say. Glyph of Warding. God, I learned to spell.
Yeah. Shit. What is it?
I think it just does flat damage. The actual spell Glyph of Warding, but I think there is another one. Further find.
Is it like Glyph of Containment or something like that?
I could be wrong. 1 sec now. It should be a surface such a table stuff. Wall object.
I thought it was Glyph of Warding that you just like, it's a glyph and the glyph stays on, and then you store a spell in the glyph, and the glyph triggers and activates the spell.
Oh no, sorry, you're right. Sorry. So yeah, you can do explosive ruins, and then you get to pick the type of damage, and it's 5d8.
Okay. It's
actually all the one spell. That's on me. And then there's also spell glyph, which is just a second option within it, where you can pick a spell of 3rd level or lower, and you can implement it that way. And then if you use a higher level spell slot, you can go a d8 higher in the damage or a spell slot higher in the spell glyph.
Yeah. So if you want to just like, yeah, I haven't had them come up across many like. They haven't come across many like wizard or magey type villains yet. They've mostly come up against like your military types or like your religious types and stuff like that, but like not specifically like high level spellcaster that's going to be like protecting their stuff with like glyphs of warding and all those kind of things. But I'm so looking forward to it because man, there's such good opportunities with that. Like not necessarily in a kind of gotcha party DM versus players, you're fucked. But in a like, it will be a moment they remember. And they will like it's like when you experience a mimic for the first time. Like you will like at the time you're like fuck, and like anytime you talk about it you're like that fucking mimic. But like when you think back about it and remember it, it'll be a good memory rather than a bad memory. You know that way?
Yeah. Oh yeah. You never want to do anything that's like you're trying to like. This is just a general thing that this aside from traps and everything. Don't ever do anything to purposely try to antagonize your players.
Yeah, DM versus player is not the way to go.
No, absolutely not. And we've had that. You and me. Not with each other.
Yeah.
But we've been in situations where it's very much been a DM versus player mentality. It's not fun. It's like, don't get me wrong, challenge your players, but it like never kind of go into any sort of DMing situation where the intent is. And I know some people like this. Some people like the what do you call it, the meat grinder kind of thing. But like if you're gonna do that, by all means, like you must communicate that to your players at your session 0 and be like, look, I really like when D&D is really hard and you guys are kind of running for your lives sometimes and it's tense and you can't win every fight and all this stuff. So just kind of bear that in mind going into this campaign. And if players then are still on board, they're like, yeah, sure. Like, and if the DM says, look, there's a good chance one or more of you might lose characters within the first 5 sessions. Just be aware of that. Be like, cool, I'll make a character that I like playing, but I'm not necessarily super emotionally invested in, and then we can just have fun. And if we die, cool, I'll roll a new character, they'll come in, and it'll be the same diff again, So, I mean, it's communicated fine, but don't ever do it that you're trying to hurt the players especially when they're like, really emotionally invested.
Yeah, I think
in their character.
Meat grinder mode is usually appealing to like people who have played a lot of D&D. Like, I've been playing D&D for like decades, and they're like, oh yeah, look, I've had loads of characters die before, and this is just whatever, it's D&D, I'm cool with it, let's just go. Yeah, if my character dies, my character dies. But like, I think that's very much for your hardened, like callous-handed, like D&D player.
Yeah. The guys, the people that have been in the game a very very long time.
Not someone's like, hey guys, I'm really excited to make my first D&D character.
I made a new character, and I wrote a whole backstory for him. But a fireball! Oh no! Oh god!
His name is Stalgrim. He's a war wizard. And, wait, what's a Yihangu? Ah! My limbs.
My limbs. Yeah, no, definitely. Like, So we're gonna get off the idea of traps, but actually, no, it kind of plays into traps as well. Don't you're not. And actually, I do want to ask your opinion on something.
Okay.
So when you told me what we were doing traps this week, I was like thinking. I thought about this one immediately, right?
Mm-hmm.
So traps can be, like we said, they can be a little bit. They can have a lot of different reasonings or results. It's not always damage.
Yeah.
But oftentimes they are damage. They're poison darts. They're a fire trap. They're a rolling boulder, whatever they are.
Bladed net.
Exactly. So in that sense, you should, and kind of talking about what we were talking about a second ago, and you shouldn't be trying to kill your players.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel? And we're on the Critical Role episode where Vex picked up the armor that was in the
Raven Queen's Pervon, the champion of the Raven Queen. Yeah. In his
Deathwalker's ward, Deathwalker's mantle, or something like that.
Deathwalker's ward.
Yeah. How do you feel about the episode? Because in that episode, it seemed like what happened was Matt had made the trap in such a way that it's X amount of damage for however many dice, and then it's necrotic, and if it drops you to 0 hit points, you're dead. Yeah. Which is an effect that shows up in plenty of monsters and stuff like that. In
spells
the game.
too.
And spells as well, like Disintegrate we talked about, I think, last week.
Finger of Death.
I was listening to it a while ago. Finger of Death.
Yeah.
There's lots of ones that will either destroy you entirely, or that will actually not just knock you onto death saves, but kill you outright. How do you think about that, or how that went, based on what we just discussed, in that you're not trying to kill your players necessarily, but
okay, so in that case, I'm actually totally fine with how that happened. I think that It worked out long term in story for them, but in terms of what they did in that room, they got exactly what they deserved.
I think if I remember the
Because
situation
they did not
rightly,
check for traps.
I think someone was going to.
Vax was going to, and then
Well,
Percy.
Vax was down a hole, wasn't he? He was kind of down in a thing a little bit away, and Percy was kind of looking at stuff and about to do, because Talison's quite good like that, especially when he's playing Percy. He was always the smartest person in the room when he was playing Percy.
Yeah.
And he was going to check for traps and do everything you should
Sorry,
do.
that was it. He was going to check for traps, and then Vex just went, "Woo!" And like you're in the crypt of the champion of a fucking god who
a death god.
Yeah, a death god who specializes in the moment of transition, in that moment, and whether or not whether you go or stay in that, right in there. And you have fought all your way down through here. You've been to other places like this before that had similarly really bad traps. Do you remember the one where like Grog was exhausted and the thing kept collapsing and they all had to keep like climbing out of the that was this one actually, because it was under a lake. Do you remember at the end of this they were all, yeah. So like what happened there? Like literally, like I said, you're in the crypt, the ancient, long forgotten, highly secretive, heavily guarded crypt of the champion of a death god that is notoriously not very friendly. And you're not going to check for traps on his coffin.
I mean, if you're the Raven Queen and you're watching that from the beyond, and you see Vex go, I'm gonna go up and take this. I mean, if I was the Raven Queen, I'd be like, oh yeah, you're fucking dying. Get the fuck out of there.
Prepare a room.
Yeah. Can you guys get a coffin ready? Thank you. Yeah, we have incoming.
And can someone get me popcorn? This will be good.
Yeah. Just she cracks her knuckles, just like crack. Watch this.
But yeah, I'm of the opinion that's that's literally the perfect example of fuck around and find out.
Yeah. Pretty much. Yeah, if you like here's the thing,
and like the level they were at as well, then that was like mid-tier D&D. That was like 13, 14, 15 if I remember.
Oh yeah, easily. Yeah, it's about that, because they were searching for the vestiges, so it was all about the drag, the Chromocontleb and stuff like that. There's this thing Matt Glover will always say to his players, which is that
I know what you're going to say.
I'm not trying to kill you. I'm not trying to kill you. The dragon wants you dead. The dragon's going to try and kill you. I'm not killing you. The dragon is. I'm just running the dragon. And there's a certain level of when you're DMing, you need to reasonably play the monsters. Because again, here's the thing: if you're fighting a bunch of skeletons and suddenly they get the upper hand on you, and one player, like 2 of the 3 players are down, and things are looking really, really grim. A DM who wants to keep his players alive might try to make a justification as to why the skeletons suddenly back off. But really, the skeleton, they're like mindless undead that just want to kill you for intruding on their tomb or whatever. They're going to finish the job, you know?
Yeah.
And it's your job as a DM, and it's not always pleasant, but it's your job as a DM to follow through with that stuff.
That is one of the harder parts of being a DM, is like, I don't want to do this, but there is no way I can justify not doing this.
But the way you then don't feel guilty, you just say, well, I didn't do it. I didn't shoot you with a lightning bolt. Darrow shot you with a lightning bolt. I didn't shoot you with a lightning bolt. That's a real thing that happened, by the way, for the audience. Actually, I've killed a couple of people this campaign, but got them back quite quickly. Relatively quickly. That actually happened to our turtle. I saw the line, and the Darrow had a lightning bolt spell he hadn't used, and all his friends were dead. And he's like, I got to get the fuck out of here, so I'm going to use whatever I can. And he lightning bolted 2 people, knocked them both unconscious, which wasn't that bad. But then when both you and the warlock tried to stop him, he cast his other high-level spell, Sleep, knowing that you guys were injured and you didn't have the health points to withstand it. And then you both fell unconscious and he just ran away. And because then you were asleep for, I forget how long it was.
It was a minute.
Was it a minute, or was it like... It was a minute, I think. You're right, yeah. And so you were unconscious for that time. And in that time, I said, look, you're not going to wake up for at least a minute, which means these guys are just going to have to go round for round and make their death saves and see what happens. And we went around in initiative order each time, and I ended up losing an NPC named Flint, who I really, really liked. He was a Shadow Kai Horizon Walker. And also Wabu, the barbarian turtle in our campaign, died there as well. It was rough because it was a bad combination of spells, but that Darrow wanted out, and I'm playing the Darrow, but I'm like, look, he's a smart guy. He knows how he'll best get out of a situation. I'm trying to think, how do I get this guy to survive? I want him to survive, or at least he wants to survive. He would say, right, I can cast another lightning bolt, which I can only hit one of these guys, or I can cast Sleep, which is a big area effect, get them both. I won't kill them, but it'll at least get me out alive. And because everyone else on my side is dead, that'll do for now. So it's a hard position to put yourself in, but it's part and parcel. It's part of the game. As if you're playing a dungeon master, it's never nice, but you gotta roll with the rolls, you know.
Yeah, you gotta roll with the punches, exactly. Do you have any traps that you have made in the past, or even or not, maybe not even necessarily for our campaign, or other ones you've DM'd or one shots that you're particularly fond of?
Let me think. I honestly, I don't use traps terribly often.
Yeah.
I try to use them here and there. I like using traps every now and again.
I think they're more effective if you don't use a ton of them as well.
I kind of did an environmental trap recently, which I don't know if you qualified as a trap or like an environmental hazard. But in the same way that you can walk down a corridor and hit a pressure plate and some darts will come out of the wall, you guys were walking through a volcanic underground area, and I had some of you make dex saves, and those of you who didn't succeed got hit with, I believe, acid and...
I think it was like I think it was like sulfurous volcanic water, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And it did acid damage.
Or was it poison? It might have been poison damage for the sulfur.
Acid.
Was it acid?
Yeah.
Okay. It was sulfurous, but it was also boiling as well. So I think that you have to burn like fire damage from it as well. And I had you make dex saves. So it's the same idea. I was quite proud of that one because I think it breaks the mold. You don't always like, just because it's I think traps and environmental hazards have a lot of overlap.
Totally. Yeah.
In the same way, again, you might walk into a place and then tripwire, and then something swings down to hit you, and you need to make a dex save to jump out of the way of the swinging axe. But then similarly, you could, I don't know, walk through a forest and then climb across a tree over a canyon or something filled with briars. And if you don't succeed on an athletics check to leap over that gap, you fall in. You know, there's when you break everything down to its base components, it's a lot of the same stuff. But that was an interesting one. I like that I got to use. You never get to use acid damage very often.
No, that's that one. I thought you were going to bring up the lava tunnel, honestly, when you started mentioning the thing. But I suppose to what you were saying.
Well, that was fun too. That was immediately after. Yeah.
I suppose. Oh God, no, please. That was
that
one was a nerve wracker.
That was a nerve wracker, yeah. And so I basically had immediately after this volcanic area that was like flat, they had to go down this lava tube, which I was inspired by Jack and Daxter from PlayStation 2. But they had to go down this lava tube, and as they were going down, there was some parts of it that were, I was going to say dry rock, but hardened rock that they could step on. But then there was all these various intertwining streams of lava flowing down it as well. And I told I think one of them could fly. Could Dan fly at the time?
He had the broom.
Yeah, he had the broom. Yeah, so he was able to fly on ahead and stuff like that, and he kind of got the idea that okay, this thing is not something we can just rush. It looks like we're going to be walking down here for a while. It's a long tunnel, so it's not like we can just do any quick solutions like cast fly for 10 minutes or something like that. This is going to be a case of we need to take our time and be cautious with this. So you guys were doing that, and I had you make some checks to try and hopscotch your way down the tunnel, and you were doing fine until I described to whoever was in the back. I want to say it would have been Mike. I described that you look back and you see that some of the stones you were just sitting on or standing on only 30 seconds or a minute prior are now starting to be covered over as there's kind of a swell in the lava that is slowly creeping downhill. In the same way that the way I pictured it was that kind of that scene. There's a shot in The Fellowship of the Ring where just before Arwen calls the tidal wave down the river to knock all the Nazgul off their horses. There's a shot it shows of some stones in the riverbed, and the water kind of swells up and rushes over the stones, and that's kind of how I pictured it. And then there was a very quick succession of like dex and athletics checks and stuff like that for you guys to hop and jump, because the further back you get, like the more the lava is gaining on you, and you'll have nowhere to stand up. You'll just be standing in lava. And you guys had to basically do a really, really tense scene, turn by turn, and try to do that. It ended up being really, really cool. And I think you actually ended up... You were wearing some magic boots, some elven boots. And at one point you made a jump onto a piece of stone and slid down it a little bit too much. and I had you try to stop yourselves, and you didn't do great at the check, so your foot did dip into the lava just very briefly.
Yeah.
And because they're magic boosts, like lava can destroy magic items. And I rolled then to see whether or not they were damaged to the point where their enchantment wouldn't work anymore. And they got some like potholes in them from the lava, but they still function just about because of the roll.
That's a good thing. I wouldn't have been able to kill the Knight of the Moon if I didn't have those.
That's true. Yeah, that's the only thing that allowed you to get the distance you needed. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, it was that again, not so much a trap, but I like the mechanics of traps and or environmental hazards can kind of overlap an awful lot of the time.
Yeah.
There was one trap I made very early on in my DMing, which I honestly look back on, I think was just so monotonous and painful. I hate it.
What was it?
You guys went into the castle in Cordwell, and you were looking to get to one tower in one of the wings because it's the only place you saw light, basically. So like, we up to that tower. You went up there, but the long corridor that leads over like a bridge to the tower, I drew out a grid, and that was like 4 wide and like 20 long or something like that. And then I had statues every 4 or 5 things on either side. And then at the very, very end of the corridor facing you, I had this huge statue of a raven. And the idea was that each...
I remember this now, yeah.
Some of the pressure plates were traps that would trigger the raven at the end. And every, again, 4 or so, there would be a set of 4 tiles. I think I had one of them be the not trapped one that you could move on. And the idea was that like I wanted you guys to basically step your way, and if you make a mistake, you get hit by one of the traps. And I don't think I had the damage terribly high, but this could be a kind of thing where if you guess right, you could take very little damage or no damage. But if you guess wrong, you could potentially, it will build up from multiple hits. So you guys tested one of them and stepped onto it. And I think I described, there was basically the statues at the sides would shoot darts at you and do a little bit of damage. The statue at the end, the big raven, would do a thing where it would like flap its wings and clap. And this huge torrent of flame would just shoot down the corridor at you. And the problem, and I think it sounds really cool. I still think thematically it sounds really awesome. The problem was that at a certain point, after trying a couple of them, the druid, Druin, played by Dan, asked could he inspect the next tile with an investigation check to see if it is a triggerable tile. And then I said, yeah, of course, because that's a perfectly reasonable part of the game. The problem then is that the rest of that for the remaining, 15 rows or 15 tiles you had to walk along, and you were just following his steps. That was fine, but it was just him making loads and loads of investigation checks. Some of them he got right, some of them he got wrong, but it just became this kind of monotonous thing of, here, make 15 investigation checks to try and see which is the triggerable one on each roll. And it was just really long and painful. I think in concept, I love the darts, and I love the idea of this statue that would flap its wings and send a torrent of flame at you. I just, in my execution of it, was quite wrong. Because it just ended up being multiple, because there's so many different pressure plates. It just got really confusing.
Do you think maybe if you were to do that one again, you'd have it you'd just do 2 checks, one for you get halfway and one halfway at the end?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I would break it up into being something that's way quicker to do, or I'd have, I don't know.
I think as well.
I'd have one player do it instead of which I did last time. I'd have one player do it so that they can just make a couple of checks. And I'll say, right, make a check to try and suss out which tiles are the best ones to go on to. And then maybe depending on how well they succeed, like maybe I'll make the DC 15, but for every one below that you fail the check, I will roll an additional D4 fire damage, and that represents how many mess ups you had along the way or something like that.
I think that'd be a good solid solution, because like you were saying, that one, like, either you're really good at investigation and you can go trap, not trap, trap, not trap, trap, and you go through and there's no damage.
And he had decent investigation, so a lot of it was just a lot of it was just, that's a trap, don't step there, that's not, we'll go here. And it was just a very slow process of having to take 5-foot interval steps up a corridor, and it dragged out for ages. I look back in it now and I'm just like you said, I think I could definitely implement it better nowadays, and I still like the concept of this fire flinging raven statue. But yeah, I would definitely go back and do it differently if I could. I think
I remember. I think I was telling you about it, but I didn't go into detail. In the last, so like the last big boss fight my guys had was against the leader of this evil blood hunter order called the Brood, and it took place inside his citadel. It's a concept I did for a one shot a long time ago when I first started really getting into D&D, and I handled it quite badly. From what I remember there, like just in terms of running, I just wanted to DM. I didn't really understand how to DM. So when it came time to do this again, and I was coming to the end of this arc, like, right, they're chasing him back to his base. Oh, I could implement this again and actually do it properly now that I understand the rules, and that's kind of what I did. So what I did was it was like I think it was a 5-floor. It was basically like a wizard's tower, but bigger, more like a citadel. And it was a 5-floor.
You described it as being like the Isengard.
Yes, Orthanc, like Orthanc. Yeah,
Orthanc. Yeah, like Orthanc. Yeah.
And it was like a 5-floor thing. Top floor was the study. Then there was a throne room. Then there was and then basically each of the 3 floors between the throne room and the ground floor would have like a staircase, a trap room, a staircase, a trap room, or a puzzle, and then another one. And then basically they had to go to 3 either traps or puzzles to get up to the throne room where they could actually have the fight. Some interesting things happened there, and I think as well it calls into the thing. It's probably a good idea to take a close look at your party and really look at them and what they're good at and and all of the features that they have, because sometimes a feature that you are aware of and you've seen used a lot just won't come into your mind when you're designing a trap, and it can completely defang your trap. For example, if
I have a story about that in a minute. You know it because you're the one who defanged me, but we'll talk about that in a second.
But it's actually an example trap that's in the book. So if you open up like I believe it's Xanthars. If you open up Xanthars has a lot of really good example traps. They'll give you like simple traps, like kind of average level traps, and then like difficult traps. And one of them I think was actually a puzzle. There was a puzzle as well, and it's basically you have to arrange. It's like a Sudoku square, but there's like 9 skulls, and you have to arrange the skulls of the 9 dwarves in a certain order. And basically, the rows and lines on the grid tell you how many skulls need to be in each row. And it like when you see the solution, it's quite clear. But like when you're looking at it initially, it might take you a couple minutes. And I was like, okay, this is like a medium kind of trap / puzzle. It won't be too bad. I reckon I'll get it quick enough. But what I didn't account for, I don't know how I didn't account for, because he uses a lot, was my Bloodhunter's Grim Psychometry.
Yeah.
Those are 9 skulls. So those are the skulls of 9 dead people. So he just went, I'm going to touch these and see if I can see anyone rearranging them in the vision. And I was like, okay, roll, because it's a roll thing. And I was like, yeah, you can still roll though. He rolled like a 19 and an 18 on both dice. I was like, you have a vision of someone, and you see them set the skulls in the exact correct order, and you very quickly do the same when your vision comes back to you. But after that, then I had a trap that I actually quite enjoyed, and it was one that similarly to what you were saying, where you want to use traps to like kind of slightly like whittle people down before they get to your boss fight. The room directly before the throne room, and it made sense to me as well because it was like his throne room, like the leader of the order's private sanctum essentially. There was like, so in this tunnel, in this tower that they had when they first came in, there's like this giant statue, like a giant marble statue of like a woman, like a veiled woman with a huge long sword pierced through her chest, and she has her like hands raised up to the heavens in like rejoicing. It's like a blood cult kind of thing. And then basically the room before they were to get into his throne room had a miniature version of that statue. And it was just about the size of a normal person, and it had a basin at its feet, and it said something along the lines of listen to your elders and heed their advice. In order to move forward, you must make sacrifice. And basically the thing that they had to do was one of them would have to take the sword out of the statue, use it to cut their hand, and bleed into the basin. And then when the basin was filled with blood, it would the statue split into like a doorway and swung open and let them into the throne room. But obviously there was a little bit of a riddle there as well to try and keep out people who didn't know what was going on. But when whoever cut themselves with the sword to fill the basin had to make a con save. And if they had failed that con save, they would have had disadvantage against the boss had a legendary action called Howl of the Pack Leader. And it basically was a 60 foot, anyone who can hear him in 60 feet makes a wisdom save, or they're afraid for a minute, or until they pass their save at the end of one of their turns.
Okay.
And
I like that the trap or the puzzle kind of filters into the end combat and can change the circumstance. Yeah, it's really
my
cool.
blood hunter was the one who actually caught himself to open it, and I was like, okay, make a con save, and he made the con save. But like if he hadn't, he would have had like disadvantage on a few other things going in there as well. So just to make it like that a little bit harder, but like he passed it, it was good. Those are the only ones where I've been like kind of fairly. Oh, actually, there was one that I threw in there, and like this is probably the closest to DM versus player stuff that I've gotten.
Right.
There ain't like before. So my party basically, I had 4 players, then 2 players stopped, then we got in 2 new players. And in the original incarnation of my party, I'll just say there wasn't one person who could do a push up in that original party. Like, now one person could do a single push up. They're all wake as water. So they were going through this UNT nest once underneath a gold mine, and they're going through there and all this. They're going down this like slightly sloped corridor that's leading downwards into the tunnel,
right,
with a big round opening at the top of the at the top of the thing. And yeah, none of them could really do any or had anything in athletics or strength, anything physical that maybe would involve like running.
Right.
And then they're walking down this sloped stairway, and then eventually they're halfway down, and I go, okay, make a perception check, and I was like, okay, 4, okay, cool. So you guys are walking down, and one of you just puts your foot straight onto the next step. It looks like solid stone, but as you do, you feel it. The stone you step on sink down a little, and there's a, and then you hear a rolling sound from behind you. And yeah, I Indiana Jones the ball trap thing to them, the giant rolling ball, but like I nearly wiped them. It was like, I think they were like level 5, and it was like 3d6 bludgeoning damage if you got hit by the thing, and like that they weren't.
Also, you turn into a flat pancake like an Indiana Jones character.
Oh no, they were just gonna get bodied by it. Like the thing was just gonna come down, and like, have you ever seen like a really big rugby player tackle a really small rugby player? It was gonna be like boom, out. I also punched my headphone wire there, but yeah.
I was worried you were going to pull something out of its a cable out of its socket or something like that.
It got very, very close, and one person did take the boulder damage, but that was the close, because I knew it would be difficult for them. I specifically knew this would be difficult, so I scaled the damage appropriately, because I knew there was a decent chance that they would all fail, like that all of them would fail it. But still,
the cool thing about a trap like that is that when the boulder, even if you escape it, the boulder rolls in and like locks in and seals the corridor after you. So there's a sense of dread that comes along with that. Even if they all succeed, it's like, oh, we didn't get crushed. But now we're trapped in here. We're going to figure another way out. And that of itself is just great storytelling, I think.
I think I didn't do that.
I want to call you out for something.
Oh God.
In terms of ruining traps / puzzles.
I'm sorry. I know what this is already.
Yeah, I think we might have brought it up before.
I think we brought it up a couple
times.
I
actually just remembered. There was a context to it, and I couldn't remember what it was. Basically, you guys were in this tomb that belonged to 3 brothers who founded a drow city. So it was a tomb that was even below the underground drow city. And you're going through it, and there was 3 corridors you had to go down and do a puzzle at the end of each of them, come back, and then you get 3 amulets or something that would open up the door to allow you to proceed.
Very Resident Evil, I must say. Actually, Resident Evil is fucking great for shit like that.
Actually, Resident Evil is amazing for absolutely, yeah. So there was basically, you got to this place where you came to a corridor, there was a room, you tried to pass into it, and there was just this hard force field you couldn't pass. And off to the side there was a basin, and the basin had a goblet there, and it's in like Drow or in like Elvish or Undercommon or something like that. It said basically, I can't remember if it was like phrased in like a poem or something like that, but it basically said if you drink this, it will allow you to pass beyond the portal. The idea is it was also poisoned you, so that when you guys went in there, you would have to deal with a fight. I think I put some spiders in there or something like that. So you'd have to fight the spiders, but while being poisoned, so you disadvantage your attacks and stuff like that. It was meant to challenge you a little bit more. And I got the idea, I think, from Dumbledore when you had to drink all the cup out of the basin. And I was like, yeah, so that's the puzzle or whatever. You guys kind of quickly copped on, we had to drink this, whatever the fuck this is, so we can go on. I don't like that. And you were like, I just spell magic. And I was like, what? And you're like, I'm like, you have that spell? Because our sorcerer didn't fucking have that spell.
That was because that was just that was shortly after you told me the paladins can in fact cast spells.
Yeah, exactly. So you were like, I was like, oh, you have to spell magic. Sure, yeah. Let me just double read that spell now. Oh, okay. Any magical effect. Yeah. And I think maybe I made you make a check or something. Oh, I didn't actually. I think I just let you do it. I think I just let you to go boom, and the portal was gone, and you went in, and you fucked up a bunch of low-level spiders because you were not poisoned. Oh yeah. That was one of those. I don't think you've given me too many of them. But there's many moments of that where the player is going to pull the rug out from under the GM amazingly.
I think. Do you know what though? That's genuinely one of the most like enjoyable parts about being a DM.
About player. About being a DM.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh, being a player as well. Just when you go, can I do this? And the DM's like,
yeah,
I guess you can.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. It's satisfying for the player. There's talking around. There's we've mentioned this before. There's a mixed reception when it comes to players doing that. Because on the one hand, you're like, oh, that's really fucking clever.
Yeah.
But now my encounter's ruined. And you're mixed emotions because you're like, that's really good. Damn it, that's really clever. Well done. But also, fuck you. You ruined the thing.
Yeah. It's not a bad fuck you though. It's like fuck you, man. Like
it's like I'm playfully annoyed with you. Yeah. It's like well done. I'll get you back.
Yeah. Your DM will remember this.
To be fair, I did because Mike went on it wasn't so much a running an encounter thing, but I had a villain monologue for the very first time you guys met the Clockwork Man, who was the overarching baddie of the first campaign. I had a villain monologue for him. And he started, and Mike just kept cutting across him/me, and eventually he just gave up on the monologue and sicked his robots on you. But then, like at the very, very final battle in the campaign, he like turned to Mike and he says, "Oh, you're the lippy one, aren't you?" Well, and he clicked his fingers, and I cast Feeble Mind on him.
The smile on your face.
I was like, I've been waiting 3 years for this.
Oh, that was.
I mean, the Clockwork Man. As
well. Yeah. Clockwork Man. Yeah. Not the DM at all.
Not me. No, I want you guys to win.
I didn't rage cry after that. No.
We were talking about a few different types of traps because the go-to thing with traps is typically damaging.
Yeah.
Right. Damaging is one way of doing it. There's other things that can be done other than that though. Like for example, I just thought of a few different things here you can do that traps can do to you, but like not without damaging you or by only minorly damaging you. So again, damage top one. Poisoning is quite easy, especially if you look like poison darts and stuff. You might only take one piercing if you get hit by one of these darts, but then you need to make a con save, and that might last for a couple hours, and that means going into the final chamber of the tomb. Now while you're fighting whatever skeleton king is in there or something, you're now poisoned as well, you know?
Particularly if it's something like drow poison, which just knocks you unconscious if you fail to save badly enough.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Another one I thought of, and I thought of this while, because you messaged me during the week about this, right? And by the way, I'd intended on doing way more preparation, and I did nothing. I did no preparation for this. But I was thinking about this, and I thought, like, traps that separate people, like a portcullis that's like comes down or whatever, like in between people. So you could be like walking down a corridor and no one checks their traps, and then you're like, oh, one of you triggers this because none of you bothered to look. I want you all to make dex saves. Whoever succeeds jumps forward into the tunnel. Whoever fails gets pushed back and is maybe now forced to take this alternate path. You know, that could be really cool if you're on like a I don't know, maybe like a Y-shaped tunnel or something like that. And then you go, everyone's like, let's all go left, and you go left. But then you get triggered, and then like 2 people get over, but then 2 people get left behind, or worse, 3 people get over, and 1 person is now left behind on the other side of the portcullis.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh shit, I can't. I have to go this other corridor. I'll see, hopefully it links up ahead or something like that. But now you've split the party, which is something that no party should or want to do. But it's brilliant. Sometimes when it happens, it can be really exciting. I also thought about another one where like a trapdoor could open in the floor, and anyone who fails falls down into a lower chamber, and anyone who succeeds, then like the trapdoor closes itself again afterwards. So now you have two people stuck on back in the main corridor, and two people have fallen into this chamber below and have to try and find each other in this huge like labyrinth or whatever. And one more I thought of, and this one I actually love. I love the execution of this. It's the same result, but I love the execution of it, right? So we're talking about traps. We've mentioned the rolling boulder trap a few times, right? Having the players make like an athletics check to not be hit by the boulder or something like that, or forget about the damage. Pretend like the damage isn't even a thing, right? Y-shaped corridor, so it runs straight and splits in two. Ask each player to write either a 1 or a 2 on a piece of paper and hand them to you. Because no one knows, no one can communicate what they're going to do because you're too busy running. So every player needs to decide in that split-second moment, am I going left or am I going right? And just see what the results are then. And I think that'd be so good because it's like I don't know. It's such an odd mechanic and it's not really part of the game. But I would love that. I'm like, here's a slip of paper. Everyone write down a 1 or a 2 and don't tell anyone what you wrote down. Hand them all to me. And then I'd say, right. So, look, you're now in the right-hand corridor by yourself and everybody else in the left-hand corridor. And I think it would be so good.
Yeah, that's a good one, right? Just when you were saying about traps that like separate people and stuff like that. There's a fun one that I actually just wholesale ripped out of the book and put into my game as one of the trap floors, and that's it. A weighted bladed net.
A weighted bladed net.
Yeah, as in they walk into the room, there's a tripwire stretched across the middle of the room, and like there's 2 or 3 people in my party who could like they have fine traps as a spell. No one did anything in this room because they didn't. It was just looked like a corridor. There was a door. It was like a door, hallway door.
That's how they get you. When it just looked like a corridor, that's how they get you.
Nobody bothered checking. So set the thing off. This like silver steel net, like with weights in the corners, and then everywhere where the net like intersects like that, it's all razor wire.
Oh.
So it drops down and pins them. But again, even though they do have a strong person now, 3/4 of the party still would struggle running uphill. So like the net comes down and it's like a DC, I think it was like a DC 15 or 16 strength check just to lift it up, or 14 it might even.
And like,
oh god.
Do you like continuously take damage for being underneath it?
I don't think so. I think it's just an initial burst of damage. I think it might be like 44 slashing damage.
Okay.
And then you're stuck under the net until someone lifts it off you, or you're strong enough to lift it. You're stuck.
I would almost go an extra mile on that one there. Now, depending on the level of the party, but I would almost go an extra mile and say you can use your action on each turn, obviously, to try and break free. If you continue failing, though, because you're like failing to grab this net.
If they failed, if they failed, I was going to give them extra slashing damage, but they basically just went
couple extra D4.
Oh god, because I think only 2 of them got caught under it. The rest made their save because it's the trigger. It's a save to avoid the net. If you don't make the save, the net falls and you traps you and cuts you. I was thinking of it, like that. It's like one of the weapons in Predator that the Predator uses. He shoots that guy with the steel wire thing, and it just like onto him. Like it's a steel net that like wraps around him and like tightens against his skin. You can see him.
Yes,
and it like cuts him into chunks. Like that's what I thought of when I saw it, and I was like, class.
I just remember that.
Another Alien great trap movie, Predator. That was it. Alien versus Predator. It was in. Sorry.
There was a scene where he actually fires it at the xenomorph.
Yeah.
And the 4 corners of it like pierce into the stone and pin it, and then they start like coiling up and like tightening the net around it, and it's all like. It's like razor thin wire, so it's cutting in. But of course, as soon as it breaks the skin of the xenomorph, it just disintegrates because of the acid again.
That's actually, Alien vs Predator is not a great movie. Not a great movie. But if you watch that, you could get some really, really cool inspiration for like a Mesoamerican style dungeon.
It's all just at the big temple run. Actually,
it's a huge dungeon.
That fucking scene where someone hits a button and the room seals. And all the eggs come up out of it at the ends of the altars and stuff. Oh man,
yeah, that was
again not a great movie, but conceptually there's some cool. Stuff,
there's some like absolutely really cool. Unlike just the predators in general, like they think they're called the Yatuja, is the actual name of their species. They're such a cool idea for a thing. But yeah,
it's just the one with what's his name? Oh, he played Neo.
Keanu Reeves.
No, sorry, he played Morpheus. Sorry,
Lawrence Fishburne. No,
Lawrence Fishburne.
is it? Is it Lawrence Fishburne? I think it's Lawrence. Right, hang on. You continue, and I'll check if I've just been unintentionally racist.
It's Predators, I think, is the name of the movie, isn't it?
I'm good. I'm not racist.
Yeah, there's a big cast in that one.
Predators is the one where they go to where they basically pick up like a squad of dangerous people from Earth and drop them off on the predator
Yes,
on like
yeah.
a predator game reserve. That's a great concept as well.
That again, super cool. Like,
Yeah.
The movie's fine, but it's a really cool concept. I love that. I was trying to also remember Topher Grace is in that, and he seems like a really shrimpy kind of scared guy.
Okay,
And it
that
turns out
was-
he's a serial killer.
That was really, really obvious though. Like that was like really, really, really obvious.
They copped pretty early on that everybody here is here because
We've got
they're,
like a Yakuza guy with a samurai sword. We've got a giant Russian with a minigun. We've got
We've
Randy.
got- yeah.
We've got former MMA fighter Randy Couture pretending he's an actor. Like, and then we have Skinny Venom. He's
and then the
and
most
he's a
dangerous
doctor.
person of all, Adrian Brody.
Oh God, go ahead. And knows that could open up a can of tuna.
Oh Jesus.
Do you know what though? I actually liked him in that.
Yeah. Do you know what? The movie's fine. It's conceptually, it's one of those movies you don't need to think too hard about. It's like, okay, there's going to be some cool action, and there's going to be some tense scenes where the predators are hunting them and stuff.
Let the Russo brothers direct a Predator movie.
Let the Russo brothers do anything. Give them literally anything, and they will knock it out of the park. They were. I was watching. I brought this up actually during the week because there was a great. We were playing D&D this week, and I brought up that there was an episode of Community that very nearly didn't get made because basically Dan Harmon and the other lead writer were up all night writing it, and they needed to have it in they needed to have it in a couple of days ago, but they were so late, and they were due to start filming like the next day or whatever, and they handed it in at like 9 a.m. while they were still drunk from the night before because they drank whiskey all night to stay awake while they were writing, and then
That is not my experience with whiskey.
no, me neither. I don't know what their logic is in that, but they handed it in, and the guy at Sony said, "I wish you'd handed this in on time, so I could have thrown it in the trash." That episode was the first D&D episode of Community,
Which is a great episode.
It's one of the best. It's largely responsible for sparking my interest in the hobby, but it's one of the best episodes. And Dan was joking then because he's like, "This is the most enabling thing in the world to my habit of like constantly being late with everything. I'm so late, and it turns out that it's one of my best episodes." You know. The reason I think of that is because Dan does an impression of Joe Russo, where there was an episode where they were going around I think it's Universal or something like that, and they were just hitting all these different sets in Universal because they had a bunch of different. They were doing a clip show, but it wasn't a clip show because it was all new footage, and they had to film all this stuff. And he was describing Joe Russo like a small mob boss. He's like, "Here's what we're gonna do, right? We're gonna start the guerrilla tactics. We're gonna go here. We're gonna go here. It's gonna be like real fast in, out, bing, bang, boom." Sorry, I got off topic there with Joe Russo and Community and stuff. But my point is, the Russos they filmed a lot of Community, and they filmed Arrested Development, and then of course they did like the Captain Americas, or two of the Captain Americas, and they did
Endgame and Infinity War.
Endgame and Infinity War. Like the guys know what they're doing in terms of making bloody movies. So I think give the Russo brothers anything, and they'll make it work.
Solid. Yeah, even a trap.
Yeah. Even a trap. Give them a D&D dungeon, and they will trap that out for you.
Actually, yeah, just Endgame when they're running away from all those fucking things under the sewers, under the Avengers compound. That was very Aliens, and I very much enjoyed that.
Oh yeah.
I suppose, Conor, what things do you want to avoid really when you're trying to implement traps? Like if there's like 3 things you'd say that you don't want your traps to feel like or come off like or have a result of, what would you pick?
Oh, sorry. Just one other thing I wanted to say in the different kinds of traps.
Oh yeah, go for it.
Ones that restrain you as well. Like
Yeah.
for example, you need to press this button, but if you do, your hand gets now stuck to this altar, and maybe some baddies flood in or something like that, and then you can't move from this spot, and you only have the use of one of your hands. That could be kind of interesting as well. Anyway, sorry. Back to your question. Yes, I like I said earlier when I was talking about the trap I made early on in my D&D kind of career, so to speak. Traps that or anything that's too monotonous or requires too much rolling or anything like a trap is something that triggers in a moment, or happens like slowly, but you're like maybe the room is filling up with water or something like that. So now you're thinking, how do we plug the holes or?
You just remind me of like literally the nastiest trap I've ever seen, and it was
the one where
made by Matt Mercer.
Yeah, when they were in the thing and the acid started flooding into the room.
Yeah, holy shit! That was I remember watching that going. He's killed his
He
entire
stole
friend.
that from Batman Beyond. Oh no, Batman Forever. With Val Kilmer, the opening scene of that movie is Two-Face is trying to rob a vault out of a bank, but it's up on like the 30th floor. So he gets a helicopter to pull it out a hole in the side of the building, and Batman goes in because there's a hostage security guard in there.
Right.
He's like, oh, it's all right, I'll get you out. But then as soon as he pulls the gag off of him, he goes, no, it's a trap. And the door closes on the vault, and all the different deposit boxes in the vault are bursting open and acid is pouring out of them. And I just remember the security guard very distinctly trying to scramble to the higher, because it's tilted.
Yeah.
He's trying to scramble to the higher part of the vault, and he's like, it's boiling acid.
Jesus. But yeah, the Mercer trap was particularly brutal because it was like 4 big spouts that like were constantly shooting acid into this thing that was
fire hoses of acid.
Yeah, that were just like filling it up and I think they had to break all of these gems to get out of it as well.
I actually don't remember how they resolved that.
I think it was literally because there were like these magic gems that were like powering the thing. I think it was like residuum gems, and they had to and they had to like break them all to get them to stop. And then I think they in the end I think they just eventually broke through because it was almost like an observation area kind of thing.
Yeah, it was a big kind of. I think it might have been residuum or some sort of.
It was like a thing for
glass.
melting. Yeah, it was like a thing for melting like residuum down into like like a component paste thing that they could be used in like magical crafting or something like that. But I was like, geez, you've locked like 4 players in here and you're literally just like bucketing acid over all of them and giving them a rather complex puzzle to work out as well.
In a very limited amount of time.
Yeah.
I actually remember at the same time. Vax, so Liam O'Brien's character, at the same time was under a charm by either the vampire or the necromancer, his necromancer wife, but one of them was charming him anyway. And he was outside the room looking in at them and could do nothing because he's currently charmed. And they were like, oh, your friends are going to die, you should come with us. And he was like, yes, master. And that's all he could do because he was completely enthralled by them. And he had to walk away, unable to help his friends who are in a room filling slowly with acid.
I'm desperate to use vampires at some stage, but they're so powerful that like I want to make sure that I'm not putting them in at too early a level.
Vampires, yeah. I don't know if we've talked about vampires or not properly in the podcast.
I don't think we have, but we probably will. I'd imagine maybe
With
in about
Anderson.
I was gonna say in about 3 weeks' time.
But yeah, so there was sorry, that's your question. Things you want to avoid. Definitely try. Like again, there's here's the thing. All right, so when it comes to a trap that triggers instantly, that should just be like a single check, maybe 2, depending what the trap is, but mostly it should just be a single check, because it happens in the moment. The axe swings down from the ceiling, the darts shoot out of the wall, the fire plumes out of something, the dragon's mouth, whatever. The stone dragon statue that I'm imagining that you can't see. Sorry about that. But yeah, it happens in the moment, pretty quick, pretty over and done with, right? The follow-up on that, or the alternative to that, is something like the river of lava we talked about a while ago that I did, which wasn't quite a trap, more of an environmental hazard, but we won't get into it. That is like a slow but tense situation. The problem with my trap that I did, where it was multiple investigation checks, is if you just stayed perfectly still, nothing happened. There was no background tension, there was no rising danger. It was if you did nothing, everything was fine. You weren't locked in, you weren't in danger of something sneaking up on you or anything like that. And that was the problem, is that it was a slow series of checks, all the same check, and they didn't it was just the same thing you were checking for every single time, pass or fail, and as a result, then it was just really, really, really slow. If there'd been a monster chasing you or something, that could have been different. But there wasn't. And I think just trying to make the traps either right now all I can think of is traps work either one of two ways. Either a slow series of checks, but with a rising tension or a rising danger in the background, or one quick, swift check, which is something happening in the moment because you hit a tripwire or a pressure plate or something like that. So that's definitely one thing I would avoid with traps. Also, traps are designed to. Again, we talked about Vex hitting that thing a while ago and getting killed from it. I don't think that in most circumstances traps should be the thing that kills someone.
No, traps shouldn't be lethal other than extraordinary circumstances, like you're breaking into the tomb of the champion of a god of death.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think imagine it's your first adventure and your first level characters. And the DM, you walk into the kobold's lair, and immediately inside the door frame, the kobolds have rigged up a log that swings down and hits you, and it's like 3d10 bludgeoning damage. And for a first level character, that's almost certain death.
You can't see because how dark everything is because the window behind me. My eyes just went what when you said 3d10 bludgeoning damage for a first level character. I was like, do you want to kill 3 parties worth of characters?
But that's what I'm saying. It's a crazy amount of damage. And I imagine that first adventure, or even early on, any bit early on in a D&D campaign, imagine make up a character, walking into the first kobold lair, you're hit with a fucking log and crushed to death, and then it's like, well, that was completely unsatisfying and not at all fun. As it feels like you're just going to kill my character for no goddamn reason.
Sorry, I just had this vision like, hey guys, I'm Therendel the Brave. Let's go into this kobold cave. Just head crushed between 2 logs. And he's just like, yeah, would you want to roll another character there, Therendel?
Yeah. My name's Berendel the Brave. Sorry, guys. I just heard that you need an extra party member. I was just walking by the cave entrance there, and I thought I'd try to throw my name in.
Oh, man. Yeah.
But yeah, so I think traps shouldn't necessarily, again, and there's situations to this that it might be different. Again, maybe if you've been through a bunch of other stuff throughout the cave or the tomb, and then late in the cave after a couple of encounters you fall into a trap because you didn't check for traps, well then and then it dropped you to 0. That's one thing. If a trap is, I don't know. Also, bear in mind, we talked about the Vex death a while ago, and there was 1 if not 2 clerics in the party at that time because I can't remember his name.
Cash.
Sorry?
Cashaw, yes.
He was there. He's a cleric. And I think Pike might have been there, but I could be wrong on that. Oh, no, she might not have been. But either way, they had a cleric.
They had a cleric, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you're a GM designing traps, and it's a trap that's like that, where it's like, oh, if it drops you to 0, it kills you, make sure that there's probably some way that the players can, I don't get me wrong, I'm a what's the word I'm looking for? A believer in the idea that I don't always have solutions to my puzzles and or traps. I'll go, oh yeah, you see that there's this obstacle in the way, and I don't know the solution. I haven't come up with a solution. I'm relying on you, the 4 other people with 4 other working brains, to come up with this, because collectively you are smarter than I am as a single person. You guys can definitely figure out what I couldn't be bothering my arse to figure out. And I'll often do that. I often don't have solutions to the trap or anything like that, and then some player will turn to me and go, "Oh, it's like a pressure plate. Is there some sort of wire mechanism under there?" And I'll go, "Yeah, sure, probably." And then they'll go, "Cool, can I try and disconnect that wire mechanism?" And I'm like, "Yeah, make a sleight of hand check," and then they'll do it. And I'm like, "Yeah, that's a perfectly reasonable solution." So I'm happy not to go with that way. But it's so yeah, I'm perfectly. I do believe in the idea that it's up to players to resolve situations that or obstacles that the DM puts in front of them.
Mm-hmm.
The DM does not always need to have a solution worked out. But at the same time, I feel like maybe Matt was thinking that. Matt's like, well, look, they have Cashaw with them. There's a good chance. But Matt's probably also thinking at the same time, they have Cashaw with them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Cashaw?
Cashew?
Cash.
Yeah. Cash.
They have Cash with them. Matt's probably thinking, right, they have Cash with them. That's fine. That means they have a potential resolution to it there. The alternative, And what may happen, and I'm sure Matt is thinking of this in the back of his head when he designs this encounter, he's probably thinking, right, but what if Kasha burns all his 3rd level spells and has no Revivify left at that time? Well, that's not Matt's problem. That's not Matt's fault to make sure the players have a resolution.
Mm-hmm.
It's not so much the players either, because they don't know what's coming, but it's kind of that kind of plays out with the draw, with the roll of the dice and the free form, chaotic nature of the game. You can't always control how players behave, and if they decide, I'm going to burn X level spell now on this really powerful disintegrate, great, that was awesome, you just killed the stone golem, fantastic. Well, now you don't have that high level spell slot to potentially solve this other thing down the road, and it's all like resource management is part of the game. So I think that is I think that resource management being a part of the game is something that kind of lets DMs off to a certain degree, where we don't always need to come up with a resolution to this. That being said, don't make traps that if a player fails, it's basically instant death. At low level play, that's way more probable.
Yeah, accidentally as well, that you could do it accidentally.
Yeah. But when it comes to high level play, I don't think, unless you're really trying, you're going to hit a snag like that. When you're like, you've got what, 110, 111 hit points?
111,
right now?
yeah.
If I wanted to kill you with a single trap, I'd want to be really fucking trying,
Yeah.
Like, I'd want to be like, oh, you failed your deck save, so that is 20 d10 acid damage. I'd really want to be going for it.
Holy shit, man.
Yeah, exactly. But
my bones
as an entire vat of acid just pours onto your head
for 10 minutes straight.
For 10 minutes straight, to slowly erodes your body into nothing. That would be a situation, I think, where don't try. You should never be trying to kill your players, and I think traps should whittle and only whittle your resources. But there are certain situations where, well, the dice went against the players in the previous fight. They have very little help now. Now this trap that was previously designed to simply be a little obstacle that takes a few health points actually reduces this person to 0. I don't think that's the DM's fault or problem. That's just the way the free-form, unpredictable nature of the game and how things go. When you have 4 or 5 people at the table all trying to do different things in different ways, and they don't know that the DM planned it this way, and the DM doesn't know that they're going to act this way. So,
Yeah, if you tempt the Chaos Gods will respond.
Exactly, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I think just as like a finishing thing on like what you don't really want to do with traps, I just wrote down a couple of ones here. I think for me, the big one, like, I think like someone can get badly hurt or even killed by a trap as long as they feel that is fair, that it is a fair outcome of what's happened.
Yeah.
Right? You like with the Vex thing, she died there as they're literally like, if you look at where it is, that's a trap. Like on the sarcophagus of the champion of a death god inside his hidden underground tomb that they had to contact an Androsphinx to find the location of. All of that thing sets a certain level of expectation for what you're going to face when you go in there, right? So like a thing that does like a butt ton of necrotic damage drops you to 0 and kills you if you get dropped to 0 in there makes sense. If you're trying to break into a bakery in the first town and you open the oven and dragon's breath comes out and roasts your whole party with like, oh yeah, you could have made an investigation check to see if there's anything weird with the oven. No,
like why would you when it's a bakery?
Yeah, exactly. That's not how it works. The other one kind of ties into that. 2 damaging. Scale your damage appropriately for the purpose that you want the damage for. Is it an annoyance? Is it a hindrance? Or is it a fucking consequence?
There's tables in I believe in the DMG and possibly also in Xanathars as well, that give you in D10s, but you can work that out differently for other dice.
There's also like in the environmental effects one where it equates certain environmental hazards to spells. Like a lightning bolt is a lightning bolt, acid is a certain amount of fire damage. I mean, lava is a certain amount of fire damage, that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think there's ways and there's resources there to adequately scale them. Don't be that, like, I get you might want to scare your players or create a certain sense of danger or tension. Throwing a bunch of dice at them is not the way to do that.
Yeah.
There's better ways to set a mood.
Scare them with your description.
Even just like if it's something like they're like a 5th level party and the trap only does 2d6 damage, which is that's moderate, it's not too bad. Describe it really viscerally. Tell them that a huge bout of flame comes out and scorches, and their skin is all cracked and scarred now because they took a blast right onto their shoulder. Mm-hmm. Describe it as being very visceral. Don't huck dice at it and hope that makes the players feel scared, because it will, but for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you want to, yeah, you want them to feel that, oh shit, something bad has happened, not like, oh shit, I'm like, yeah, you want it to feel fair and earned, I think is the most thing with trap. Because like, nearly every player usually will have some skill that they can use in some way to either detect, disarm, or locate a trap. In some way, a lot of them.
At the very least, you can just like do an investigation.
Yeah, perception, investigation, anything like that. Like
10-foot pole.
Yeah, 10-foot pole. 10-foot pole goes on. You can literally just stand back and whack the floor and set everything off.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's an old school D&D item. That it's just a 10-foot pole, metal, wood, doesn't matter. And you take that and you just poke floor tiles to see if any of them are triggerable traps. Like there's loads of ways other than like you can do investigation, 10-foot pole, find traps as a spell. You could conjure a familiar and go walk on into that room there and see if there's any traps and see if they set something off. You know, there's a lot of different ways you can do it.
If you have a pack, take the pack off and hook it onto the floor you're about to have to cross.
Take a big chunk of stone from somewhere else and throw it at the floor and see if the floor collapses like a trapdoor. Then you know,
this thing I love about D&D, right? Not necessarily any of those things that we mentioned offhand are in the book about how to solve traps. But if you were to say that to a DM, every DM would go, "Yeah, you can try that."
Yeah, exactly. That's the beauty of the game is that there's you can pretty much, and I say this to people when we start playing, and they don't always get the scope to which I mean it. But I always say the best thing about the game is you can try anything. Pitch an idea to me, and I'll tell you how or if you can do it. You know.
Yeah, and if you can't, we can go back and forth until we get down to a level of you can do what you want to do, but it's doable and like appropriate
within this window. Yeah. Like, can I do this? I'm like, well, would you have that item on you? Probably not. But what if I tried to use like a stone from the room instead? I'm like, that would probably work instead of the thing you were looking to do, or the item you wanted to have. Yeah,
I find with stuff like what are you trying to accomplish is usually a good question to ask.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, absolutely.
Because like people might not have the exact terms to describe in D&D terms what they want to do, but if you just straight go, look, what you want to happen, and then you can meet them halfway. You know.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That was.
Well, Martin.
Yes, Conor.
That's all the time we have for today.
Is it now? Fucking hell. Yeah, it's been a. Traps are always so fun to talk about.
Why did you become an Irish mammy there? Is it now? Cheers, fucking hell.
I don't know. Maybe it's because there's a grand old stretch in the evening now. Okay. Yeah. No. That was fun. Like I knew we'd have a lot to talk about with traps and stuff.
I had a backup topic plan that we did not need to go near at all.
I knew. I'm just like, we're like over 20 episodes in now. At this rate, we can almost plan that at some point we're going to go on a tangent. It may be one of 4 areas. It's going to be like The Simpsons, Critical.
This is our 20th episode.
21st, no?
20th? No, because if it was 21st, it'd be me, because we do odds and evens.
Sorry,
You're always evens, I'm always odds.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, cool. Yeah. No, it's 20 episodes of having an absolute blast so far.
Having a ball.
Indeed. But Conor, where can people find you on the internet?
People can find me on the internet, mostly on Twitter at 0.Conor, ZeroPointConor, 1N, very important. And also here on the Micflayers podcast every Friday at 6 p.m. Irish time on YouTube and Spotify.
Indeed. And if you're looking for me on the internet, you can also mostly find me here on the Micflayers podcast at the same time as Conor, because, we co-host. Otherwise, you can find me on Twitter at So Sorry It's Over, which is boom just in the corner there. You can find the podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and Twitter in our social links in the right-hand corner of the screen there. But other than that, I don't think. Occasionally I'm on Twitch, but I've been very, very lazy with it. Even though it is linked in every episode. So apologies if anyone's waiting for core Twitch content from me. I've been slacking. But that's pretty much going to be a goodbye from me. Goodbye. And goodbye from Conor.
Later, folks.
And we will see you next week, same time as always.
Next time.
Yeah, next time, same week as always, for the Micflayers podcast. Have a good one, folks.
Later, folks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.